Hey everyone, it's Aaliyah. Welcome back to Aaliyah TV Reacts. So today we're gonna be reacting to this video. It's titled "Why I'm Shutting Down My Airbnb Business and What I Learned." So let's scroll down. So this was posted 2 weeks ago. It has 122,000 views, 100,000 views. Y'all see the number right there. Let's read the description box. It says, after running 3 Airbnb units plus a house, I finally decided to shut them all down. In this video, I break down what went wrong, what I wish I knew before I started, and why renting someone else's property without owning it eventually became a trap. Financially, mentally, and emotionally. This isn't anti-Airbnb, but it's the truth about what it really takes to run a short-term rental business system. What it really takes to run a short-term rental business without systems, capital, or ownership. Wow, okay. Systems, capital. Okay, so it sounds like he was disorganized. Okay, but we're gonna find out. But hold on, let me get into my disclaimer. Everything I say is my opinion about what's on the screen. If you're not in the video, I'm not talking about you. This video is for entertainment and commentary. No hate here, just honest reactions, a little sarcasm, some roasting, and maybe some side-eyeing. This is for entertainment purposes with a side of being realistic. If I critique something, it's called constructive criticism, not a personal attack. I don't beef on the internet or people I don't know. If you disagree, you're allowed to. I love that. This is not an echo chamber. We are all unique. Just don't come at me like you're trying to win an internet battle. It's not that deep. Also, if I say something wild, I'm West Indian. It's just natural. Now let's get into the video.
What's going on, y'all? It's your boy GK, and right now I'm gonna give you guys the story on why it is that I'm shutting down the Airbnbs. Right? So I started the Airbnb journey back in, I believe, the end of 2021. And it was a way for me to have another income, start another business that at that time I believed would make money. And, it just seemed like a good transition from the time because I started to see the potential ceiling of the recording studio, which will go on to close in 2023. But I remember watching a podcast. It was a Earn Your Leisure podcast. I don't even know if they still are doing that podcast, but it was a podcast called Earn Your Leisure, and essentially they had this woman on there, and she was doing Airbnb, and they asked her some very specific questions that at that time I felt like I wanted to know, and maybe didn't even know that I wanted to know. But they asked her, like, from the time that you posted your first property, how long after that did you get your first booking? And she was like, 24 hours. And the host of the podcast was like, no, I don't think you understand the question. He said, from the time that you pushed the button and said list or post or whatever it says, how long after that did you get your first guest? She's like, 24 hours. Once she said that, it was a done deal for me. I already knew this was what I was about to do. And so at that time, like I said, I had the studio. I had my own room in the studio.
Okay, so he was watching Earn Your Leisure. Honestly, I never watched that a day in my life. Why? Because first of all, they never came across my desk. Number two, I really do not watch like podcasts that have like different guests, people rotating in and out. Like whenever I consume content, I like it to just be like, the same person I watch. Sometimes if they have somebody up there, they have like a panel going on, I probably will not tune in because, this is YouTube. I'm coming for you and not the guests or anything like that. So, yeah. But I've heard things about this Earn Your Leisure podcast. I do watch Pocket Watching with JT. I really like him. He's so petty. He's so petty. Oh my God. He's really like the petty king. But I watch his I was watching him heavy at one point, but he only comes on Fridays and stuff like that. So I usually just watch the replay. But I've heard the things about this Earn Your Leisure podcast situation. And it's one of those like pay for play things. People can pay their way to get on there and like tell their story and stuff like that. Plus also on the Earn Your Leisure side, They don't have to go out and think about content to do. People are coming knocking on their door like, let me in, let me in. I wanna be in your podcast. I wanna be in your podcast. You know what I'm saying? And if they come in on to promote something, of course, that's basically ad placement. You're gonna have, you should give us some money for that. So yeah, I'm not surprised. And I'm not surprised he fell for this lady who said, oh, 20 in 24 hours, I got this booking. Which honestly, it could very well be true, but just it coming from the earn your leisure, I'm side eyeing it. Like, I've heard so many things like, y'all, oh my God. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's so crazy. But anyways, let's get back into the video.
And I basically ended up using all of the furniture that I had in my room. So it was kind of like a very bachelor pad type of place. But essentially what I did was I started booking apartment tours on Zillow.com. And when I started booking these apartment tours on Zillow.com, I had a lot of them lined up. And believe it or not, right, the very first person I went to said yes. And it was a situation where, I don't know, like the cards, I guess, just lined up. I explained to him, like, hey, you're looking for a consistent tenant. This apartment is like really small, so you're probably not going to be able to rent it that much, consistently for that long of a term, before turnaround. And there is a huge Airbnb market here. I'll take on all the risks. The apartment will stay clean because we have to keep it clean anyway for our tenants. So if we ever move out, it'll be moving and ready for the next tenant, yada, yada, yada. And so he ended up taking a chance on us, and he ended up, doing, starting off with a 3-month lease and saying if the 3-month lease goes good, we'll move to a 6-month. Then the 6-month lease went good, then we move to a year. And we've kind of been in that same momentum of the renewal of the year leases since then. So fast forward from 2021 to 2020, let's say 2023, the winter of 2023, December. This is where I started to really, I would say, come in contact with my first major valley. You got peaks, this is a valley. And in hindsight, the only reason I went through this was because of the knowledge that I did not have. Like, honestly, moving forward now, I wouldn't run into these things because I know. But December 2023, we're coming down off of the slow season, off of the peak season with Airbnb. So you're literally seeing the the guest booking rate slowly diminish to 0, which is terrifying when at that time, I had 3, well, I still have 3, but I have 3 units of this guy that I'm paying market rent for. So that was actually the first reason why it is that I'm going to go ahead and get rid of these things, because I'm paying market rent for these units.
Okay, let's kind of just talk about him saying how, Airbnb started going down because, quite a bit of people blame them for, the housing bubble and stuff like that. Like, on top of, like, the low interest rates, but people getting these apartments and putting them on Airbnb and like charging all this amount for it. Like, like now people got to stay competitive. They got to raise the rent and stuff like that. So yeah, and also, Airbnb, they started getting like really ridiculous. Well, I guess it's not their fault, maybe it's the host's fault, but I've heard like so many stories of people saying, the fees are ridiculous and all this stuff. So that also contributed to like the downfall of Airbnb. And he said 2023, okay, so we're basically, if I'm remembering correctly, I feel like we were basically out of the pandemic by then, because last year was 2024 and it was just like, what pandemic? You know what I'm saying? So yeah. So that would make sense, and around that time too, I think the monies was starting to slow down for a lot of people too, because people got the little, the stimulus money, but not even the stimulus money, the PPP money, all that stuff. Y'all remember the PPP scammers? They was out here. People was blowing money like crazy, spending it. And also, companies, they were hiring, they were paying people a little bit more. Now they're laying those people off, but they were hiring, they were giving people, more money. So, people had all these different things going where they could afford all these little extra things. And, if you're going out of town, and because honestly, y'all, even though Airbnbs were so expensive, guess what? Hotels, they were still pretty cheap. Okay. The hotels didn't really, move up in their prices for the most part, from what I've seen, because whenever, I would travel and I book a hotel, I feel like I'm paying the same, like a normal, I'm paying a reason. Okay, I'll say reasonable. I'm paying a reasonable rate to stay at a hotel compared to an Airbnb where ain't nobody finna make me no damn breakfast when I wake up. I gotta make up my own bed. Like, are you serious? So no, staying at Airbnb was like never on my to-do list. I've stayed at an Airbnb one time, and that's when I went to San Diego for my friend's birthday. You know, my friend she was Miss Universe. The year the USA won. I think it was that she was Miss Universe 2022. So yeah, we went to San Diego for her birthday or whatever, like the following year after, you know, she was done being Miss Universe and everything and wasn't super busy. But that was like literally the only time I stayed at an Airbnb. And it was really nice. I think for that, like when you're traveling with your friends, like that, I feel like that's good. But even like my family, whenever we go places, baby, we stay at hotels, okay? We make it like, and when we leave for the day and we come back to our room, guess what? Our bed better be made up. Okay, our bed better be made up. Towels better be there fresh. You know what I'm saying? So no, I don't mess around with Airbnb. Okay, because when I'm traveling, baby, I'm not from around here. Okay, I'm being pampered every which way I go. Okay, so no, I never saw the appeal with an Airbnb. I never even thought about doing Airbnb. I'm like, this is stupid. You gonna trust strangers with an entire thing that's you're responsible for, essentially? Like, I'm not trusting nobody like that. That's no.
Which is fine in peak season because it's like you at least still have margins to make at least $1,000 on top of the rent money. But it really dawns on you when you're in the slow season, you get 0 bookings, and now you have 3 apartments that you're on the hook for market rent. Real tough, real scary situation. And fortunately, during that time, I caught a blessing by the name of Furnish Finders, and I was able to fill all 3 of those units, actually all 4 because I have a house as well, but right now we're talking about the 3 apartments. I was able to fill all of those apartments with tenants from Furnish Finders. And that is how I discovered that, oh, okay, I see how it goes now. I'm supposed to ride Airbnb for 6 months and put a tenant in there for 6 months. So the tenant takes care of the slow season, and then Airbnb takes care of the money-making season. But here's the thing that I did not know that nobody told me. Having these 3 units, and especially being in the same building, essentially turned me into the property manager for the building. Well, not for the building, but since the unit only has 6 units and I have 3 of those units, I'm essentially the property manager of half the building. So if anything, little small things go wrong, because I'm only a 1 staff person, minus my cleaners that I had on and off at the time, I'm really everything. I'm the booking coordinator, I'm the handyman, the maintenance man, you know what I mean? I'm all of these things. So at the first time something goes wrong, I'm the guy that has to be on site for that, right? Like I remember one time, one of my tenants called me at like 2 in the morning because the pipe had busted out in the kitchen ceiling. And I remember it being 2 in the morning and specifically thinking like, no, you gotta be lying. Like, you know, the pipe is not busted. You know, this is a joke. Where's Ashton Kutcher? This is punked. You know, for those of you that remember that. But he literally put the phone up to the water coming out of the ceiling. And it's like, dang, like this man really has water coming out of the ceiling. And so it's like, with the deal that I set up with the owner, you know, pretty much I told him I would have to be I agreed to be the first responder on pretty much my units. Now, he paid for the plumber to come out, he paid for the things to get fixed, but I had to get up out of the bed. And plus, this is my tenant, Airbnb, so I'm the face. So I had to go. And of course, the tenant was mad or whatever the case. But essentially, this is when I learned that doing Airbnb, you're gonna have to still do property management the same way that you would for long-term tenants. Now,
okay, so you know, I'm surprised he didn't like take a course or something when that lady was on there. I'm sure she was selling a little something, because you know, I feel like any decent Airbnb course or anything people sell or anything, if he was, did he even watch any more YouTube videos? I feel like even in those videos, like they basically tell you like, yeah, it's all on you, basically, like, you know. And that's crazy. I mean, you can't stop. Honestly, I wouldn't have went out there for the leak. I can't stop the leak. Like, what am I showing up for? You know what? I'm so glad I don't have like tenants or nothing like that. Like, what, you gonna show up to shut off the water? Like that's, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to think like what are you gonna show up to do? Like you're not a plumber. Like you need to call somebody over there to go shut the water off to stop it from flowing out. Cause I don't know. You talk about, are you first on the scene? Like it's a break in or something. I don't know. Why would you do that? And of course, the person who's the actual landlord, not you, the middleman, will have to come in and do those things because that's what comes with when you own property and you have tenants. Like you're still a tenant. You're basically subleasing because you're the one with the leasing. You're subleasing it out to other people. Basically, you're subleasing. So that's crazy. I'm not. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna try to call the 24-hour plumber people and send them out there. Like, what the hell? I'm not getting out my bed for that. But anyways, that's why I'm not. My bad. That's why I'm not one of them.
Mind you, the reason I got into Airbnb is because I did not want to deal with the long-term tenant issues, because I watched my grandmother do this with her tenants, and she would prefer to do that. But at that time, I'm like, yeah, I don't want to deal with long-term. I want to be able to make that money, get these people out. If I have an issue, they're leaving in 2 days. And so having to consistently be the property manager kind of showed me the actual workload that having Airbnbs would still bring. And so, paying market rent, still risking the downturn of the market, and being
Also, something he's not seeing the beauty in is when you have long-term tenants, that's guaranteed money every single month. People should be paying for where they lay their head every month. That should be a guaranteed money like coming in. So, but he's thinking about the fast quick money that he can make if somebody comes. What they come here for a weekend, and what people might charge more in the weekend, and a weekend come through and he makes like $1,000, and like what 300 of that is for the cleaning and whatever Airbnb is. So now he left with the 7 or something, and he just made that over a weekend. And then somebody else coming for another for 2 days, and he probably making $2,000. So he was in on the quick, fast money. He liked the feeling of that. Talking about some, he don't want to deal with long-term tenants. Like what you got to deal with all these different personalities when you're doing Airbnb, because you got to deal with everybody that's coming through. Like, so in my opinion, Airbnb seems worse. Like it seems worse. You're dealing with more people, and if you have a tenant, you I wouldn't say always caution on the side of bad energy. Like you could probably get a really cool tenant, like that's gonna pay their bills. They're not gonna be on you. So that's not smart to think that you don't want to deal with long-term tenants. I think that's not a good way to go into this.
on the hook for that. Being the property manager, day in and day out for all these little small things, and even with the regular tenants, it's like you still got to, with the regular midterm tenants, you still essentially, I'm still being, no matter how you slice the pie, segued into this full-time property management gig, and I can't outsource it because I have to get the monies together. And remember, I told you in previous videos that when one thing was going good, something else was happening that was zero to finances. So it's like I did have a summer where I was able to afford a cleaner, but that's the only thing I was able to afford, and I was able to keep him until I couldn't afford him no more. So with all of this being said, and really recognizing what the real workload is of Airbnb in order to make it a profitable business, a smooth selling business, I realized that it was too much work for me to put into a building that I do not own. Different strokes for different folks. I know people who have 19 Airbnbs spread around locations that they don't own any of them, and they have the systems to be able to take care of these things, including me. I worked as like one of the moving guys for these people, where they just call me, they give me the stuff, they tell me what to do, and I transport from one place to another, move in, move out, whatever. But they have the systems. And so in the blueprint of the work that I felt like I would have to be on the hook for figuring out, whether it be me or whether I would have to outsource these things, I realized that it was not worth the investment to me to have to do all of these things and not own the building, And by owning the building, also another advantage that I would have would be the fact that I would be able to get more margins, have a higher profit margin because I'm not paying market rent for each of these units. I'm just paying one mortgage for the whole building, right? So all of these things just made more business sense to me. And so the place where I'm at now is that it is currently, the end of April. My leases with these 3 units end between August and October. So, and I have a good relationship with the landlord. So, it's not like I'm not able to call. It's not like I have to jump through hoops to get in contact with him or things like that.
And honestly, he seems very young, so maybe he never thought about none of this. But think about it. Whenever you're renting something, essentially, like the money you receive from the Airbnb and stuff, you already got to go ahead and, damn, I got to pay this. Damn, I got to pay that. I got to pay this. Like, so I never saw the point of going to rent somewhere. So just to say you have an Airbnb and get other people to come in and out, because that's so stupid. Like if I own the building, I might as well do my own Airbnb listings. Why have this middle person? You know what I'm saying? Like, why even be bothered with this middle person? That's just what I just thought about. But I guess he's really young. He didn't think about the expense of the business. Basically, this is all business expense. Like you having to pay the rent or market rent where you're doing your Airbnb. This is all a business expense. Like I would want to see the actual profits, because people can sit up and say, oh, I got this much on Airbnb, this much. Okay, that's what you made, but is that your profit? Like, what is your profit though? Yeah, you made that, but is that profit? Like what? Like we need to see some profit and loss statements. Like let's, you know what I'm saying? Like let's see the expense reports, like what's going on. So, but people, they just hear, oh, so much money, and they just want to run and do it. Like, and some things you can learn on the way, but something as big as like property, I wouldn't learn on the way.
That we have a good relationship. So essentially, I explained to him this exact same situation, and I told him basically at the end of my lease, I will be moving out. And, in the process of doing that, I do have to find somewhere to put my furniture or whatever the case may be. I'm going to handle that at that time. But I told him I would ride out my lease, and then I would be turning over those properties to him. Now, one thing I do have to say is that February was one of the worst months that I've had having these Airbnbs, because as of late, because I didn't have the operating overhead to do what was necessary to get everything back on track with the Airbnbs, which is another thing that I realized you do need to have that working overhead capital to work with to cover things like cleaners and incidentals and whatever is needed to get everything back to normal. So because I didn't have this, because I'm just constantly zeroing out, I decided that I would have to put tenants in the units and just manage the tenants until I could get back on my feet enough to be able to put everything back in motion. But so I have tenants in there right now, but at this point I've realized that this is just how I feel already. So I'm going to go ahead and execute this. But even now, right now as we speak, I am pretty much an acting property manager for these 3 units. So when the tenants have issues, they call me. When the tenants have questions, they call me. When something is going wrong, they call me, and I facilitate that and decide if it's something that I can handle, or something that needs to be escalated to the owner. So it's like right now I'm kind of locked into the slave cycle of being this full-time property manager by way of just trying to constantly climb out of this hole that I'm in, right? But February was one of the worst months that I had, because
hold on, what did he think was gonna happen? Like, I want to know, like, what did he think was gonna happen? Like you're gonna have to do some work. I think people get confused online when they see people talking about stuff, doing stuff. You still have to do some level of work. If you don't have enough money to outsource that, if you're not just the person who funds things, like you just dish money here, dish money there, and got somebody carrying and executing it out, you're gonna have to be the one that does the work. You're gonna have to do the work. So I don't know. He's just saying stuff, and I'm just like, how you ain't know this? I don't know. So that's what I'm thinking. Maybe he's really young, because I thought it was obvious. I mean, now he basically managed his own Airbnb. He's property management. Now that's something he could put on his resume. He was a property manager. He managed all these Airbnbs and stuff like that. So at least he did get something out of it. He got the experience and he got something to put on his resume and he learned a lot of lessons. So yeah, because why would you not?
I had zero motion in the properties. I had no bookings, no tenants, nobody wanting to book the property or rent the property, and I essentially could not pay rent for the month of February. Now, all of these 3 units together equal a total rent of $47.50. So you can imagine, even on the months where I still made it through, but almost didn't make it through, knowing that $47.50 would have easily got on the books like that, easily put you in $5,000 of debt. You know what I mean? This is where I was in February. This was the reality that I've been trying to die for a year straight, and it finally came. Nobody booked, nobody rented, and now I'm on the hook for $47.50. I think at this point I still have to pay $3,200 of that back. I paid like $1,500 or something like that already, but this is where I'm at. These are the things. These are the actual risks that you take when you're coming into trying to get into something like Airbnb and you don't have any mentor, you don't have any experience, you don't have anybody to guide you, and you're just taking your advice from a podcast that you saw that they're only talking about some of the good things and not, and to each his own. Some people probably may have never even went through these things, but when you don't know what you don't know, this is kind of how you have to learn the game, through trial and error. And I have been through Armageddon with these Airbnbs. And I'm not saying Airbnb is not lucrative, because it is, and it very much can be, but it's all about how you set it up. And at this point, I realized that I set my blueprint up not in the smartest way for my life and the life that I'm trying to live.
He said a lot there. He did say a lot there. Hold on, I'm gonna take it back because I was gonna say something. Oh, I remember now. No, okay, yeah, he was talking about. The comment he made about, oh, just a podcast and just talk about the good, blah blah. So I'm like, so you legit only listen to this one lady, this one podcast, the Pay for Play podcast at that. And that's it. You didn't do no other research. You didn't do no other, because I feel like at 2021. Ooh, 2021. I feel like there were videos out there in 2021, like a good amount of videos out there about Airbnb and how to go about it and do it like that. I feel like there really was, because I'm recalling there's this girl that I'm subscribed to who I would watch. She did like the notary stuff and everything, and she started doing Airbnb. So that's how I remember. So yeah, there was people out here doing Airbnb content, and she would be talking about the things she's going through. So I'm assuming maybe he didn't find the correct videos or even look into other videos and research. I feel like maybe he didn't do a whole lot of research on the side of hearing feedback and reviews from other hosts on the platform. But yeah, so I did rewind it some, but let's hear what he said.
And at this point, I realized that I set my blueprint up not in the smartest way for my life and the life that I'm trying to live. I want to be able to, if I'm going to be a property manager full time, changing doorknobs, putting in ACs, dealing with pipes, waking up at 2 a.m., all these different things, I would rather do that.
Hold on.
Trying to live, not in the smartest way for my life, because it is, and it very much can be, but it's all about how you set it up. And at this when you don't know what you don't know, this is kind of how you have to learn the game, through trial and error. And I have been through Armageddon with these Airbnbs. And I'm not saying Airbnb is not lucrative, because it is, and it very much can be, but it's all about how you set it up. And at this point, I realized that I set my blueprint up not in the smartest way for my life and the life that I'm trying to live. I want to be able to, if I'm going to be a property manager full time, changing doorknobs, putting in ACs, dealing with pipes.
Okay, I want to touch on the lucrative part. Honestly, I mean, right now, current day, Airbnb is like, it's crashed, like it's in the dirt. it's not that great. It's down bad for real. And I feel like the only way Airbnb can be lucrative is if you're the actual property owner, and maybe you have a low mortgage, or you own your property outright, and you can afford to, however much you want to rent it out for or whatever on Airbnb. Like, of course, that side will be lucrative, but this side that a lot of people have been going about it with the renting apartments and staging it and having people come in and stuff like that. That way, I feel like that way you're always going to be at a loss, because you still have to pay your rent at the end of the day. You still have to pay that at the end of the day. And like, if this isn't even your property, like you don't own this, you know what I'm saying? Like, why should you even have to deal with paying that? But if you have this is a house, a mortgage, like an investment property, something you have that you're gonna have to pay anyways, then okay, yeah. But I think that's where it went wrong. Like, Airbnb was supposed to be a thing for people who had the empty houses, who had the spare room, who had the extra space, and just wanted, to make a little bit of money on the side. That's what it is. And that's another thing too. Like, I think it has to do with the gig economy. Even when the gig economy started booming and Uber started coming up and stuff, it was meant to be like a little side hustle, and people saw they was making a killing with this little side hustle, that they moved the side hustle to be their main source of income. And that's where things go terribly, terribly, terribly wrong. Like, that's where it goes so wrong. Like, Airbnb was supposed to be like a little thing, like, oh, a convention's coming to town. Okay, well, I have a guest house. I can rent out my guest house for people coming in town for the convention. It's meant for stuff like that. Oh, I have a whole basement apartment underneath my house. I can rent that out for the people who are coming in. It's meant for things like that. This whole janky way of doing Airbnb, this is something new that y'all done came up with. Y'all felt like y'all seen a way, y'all saw an escape route, y'all saw a plan, y'all saw like a quick lick or something. And really, it just, this is not what Airbnb was originally intended for. And now everything is just, it's just, you know what I'm saying? It's not good. But okay, come on, let's finish this.
Waking up at 2 a.m., all these different things, I would rather do that for a property that I own, so that I know when I break my back to still make those payments, it's going towards paying off the principal on my loan, not me having to now work as a slave to pay back monies that I was not able to pay, and that is just a free $3,000, $5,000.
You hear that? He said now he gotta work like a slave to pay the money back. Because he wanted to Airbnb and live an easy life and just hire people to clean and do everything. Like, that's because the way how he described it, how he didn't have a systems in place for his life and how he want to do it. Yeah, you just wanted to sit around and just collect the easy check. When you outsource everything, that's where things go wrong. Like, you have, honestly, the less you outsource, the better it is for your bottom line. So paying for the cleaners and all that stuff, especially if you have time to go and clean yourself, you should just do that. Why are you paying somebody to do that? Like, and if you don't know how to clean, oh my God, that is so embarrassing. Like, I really hope you do know how to clean at your big age. Like, oh my God. But anyways, yeah, let's finish this.
Going into somebody else's loan that I still have to work to, like, basically I have to be willing to be a slave for right now to put this to pay off this debt with this missing rent payment. So that's essentially the reason why it is that I'm going to go ahead and shut down this whole operation and just get to a 0 point and decide if I feel like it's worth doing this from another perspective, from an ownership perspective, because I already do have to, get another rental property anyway. But because I need to be able to have somewhere to live myself. And I decided that, we can talk about this in another video, but I decided that I'm going to go ahead and I keep saying try. I'm going to go ahead and get myself in position to buy that rental property, at least a 2 or 3 flat, if I can at least get a 3 flat, rent out the other two, the two, and live in one of them and live for free. So I don't know if I want to do that with the long-term tenant blueprint business model, or if I want to do one Airbnb or do both of them as Airbnbs and do the Airbnb midterm rental 6 months, either way. But this is essentially where I'm at now, and why I'm getting rid of the Airbnbs that I at least have now come August and October, between August and October. And just really pulling myself out of this hole, man. It's no point. It's no point in doing all this work, especially in these hard times where it's like coming across $5,000 could be a game changer in most scenarios. And now you have to pay this stuff back to a landlord, and I have no issues with him. Our relationship is good. I wish him the best. And I hope that our relationship continues to thrive in business after this. But essentially for business, for myself, it doesn't make sense to do all this stuff and you're only paying off somebody else's mortgage. So that's all I got to say in this video. If you found some value in this or some insight, drop a like. If you want to hear more videos like this about random self-development things like that, personal development stuff, and just day-to-day living as a normal individual, please subscribe.
Okay, so that's his video. His channel name is GK Harmony. So yeah, that was very interesting. That was very interesting. So he, I'm gonna take it easy on him because he seems like a really young dude. So that was crazy. Yeah, you're gonna be at a loss in this business. And honestly, I bet like his taxes things look really good because most of the money coming in Airbnb, from my understanding and from the things I've seen, especially from what he just described, a lot of the money coming in is going right back out. Like, I would be curious to know what percentage of the money that actually came in that he was able to get. Like, what really was his profit margin? Like, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like it's not like, okay, like the example I gave earlier, like keeping 7 but having to dish out 3. Like, that's just on the low end. It could be way more than that. Like, it could be, from every rental coming in, he's only getting like half of that to take home. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, we don't know. But to me personally, I feel like it's just not worth it. It's not worth it. I wouldn't mess around with it. I wouldn't really care to do it unless I own the property, I own the house. And I'm doing it the way Airbnb was originally intended for, And I wish him the best of luck. If he's going to do the whole like tenant and all that stuff, I feel like you should also let your tenant know that there's an Airbnb like where they're living, because honestly, I live in a house. I don't live in apartments. I don't do apartments. I don't like apartments. And mostly due to the foot traffic. Because, you really don't know who's supposed to be there and who's not, because it's probably a really big apartment. You don't want to But when you live in a neighborhood, you live in a house, you know your neighbors. You recognize faces. You see people. So whenever you see a new face, you're like, oh, who is that? I mean, you might not be on some nosy tip, but, the cars driving down the street, where that car might go. That car looks familiar. Stuff like that. So yeah, so I don't do apartments, none of that. I live in a house. I have a house, my name on this deed, all that stuff. So that's the kind of stuff I like. You know what I'm saying? I grew up in houses, in Trinidad, it's a house. There's not very many apartments, there's like condos and stuff like that too. I mean, yeah, I did basically live in. It is an apartment. Yeah, I basically lived in one, but those apartments is like you buy it, you know what I'm saying? So like your neighbors, everybody. It's not like random people cycling in and out. So yeah, I guess that's how I grew up and that's what I'm used to. And I did stay in apartments when I was in college and I absolutely hated it. Like the people upstairs with the dog. Oh my God. Lord, when I tell y'all, I used to take that broom to ceiling on them. Oh my goodness. But anyways, I'm rambling now. I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Are you doing Airbnb? Tell me what you think about this video. Let me know what you think about my commentary, the things he had to say. And if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like. If you want to see me react to something, whether it be a video or a story or anything happening, there is a video submission link in the description box. So check it out. And if you want to support the channel, links to support the channel is in the description box as well. And if you want to see more of me, be sure you subscribe and, you know, come on the journey with building up this channel, because I'm so excited for what all it can bring. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.